Hi everybody, and welcome to my Janna guide to the support lane. A little bit of background about myself. I probably have 100 games played of Janna. I'm currently in Diamond Elo. I main support and mid lane. I think that she is just in an amazing spot right now in the current meta. She's able to fill a lot of gaps that sometimes teams are really lacking with the amount of defensive capability she brings to a team, whether it be being an anti-assassin, anti-diver with her ult, or just a lot of shields and heals for the hyper carries that are pretty prevalent in the game right now. Also, I'm going to be putting timestamps down below in the description just because this is going to be a little bit longer of a video than the last few that I've put out, just because I have a lot to kind of say about her, and she has a lot of flexibility in what she can do with kind of her items and runes. And yeah, so I'm gonna organize it into just going over her base kit and my thoughts on it, then items, runes, and then some matchups you should really look out for. And as always, if you guys want me to look at your OPGG and maybe give you suggestions on maybe something you're doing wrong or something that maybe you could look to improve, I'm always up to do something like that. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into the guide. Oh, and one more thing, guys, before we get into the guide. I know it's kind of weird, but I actually recently got banned on my main account for a couple of weeks or something, just for being toxic a little bit in games. So yeah, most of this gameplay is just going really heavy AP builds with Comet and just trying to carry with Jan. I thought it'd make for a little bit more exciting gameplay, and yeah, so this is pretty much do as I say, but not as I do. So keep that in mind when you're watching the gameplay. And if I'm going Ludens or sorcery boots, it's definitely not optimal, but it can be a lot of fun to be doing the kind of stuff that I'm doing in the gameplay with high AP and doing things with like Comet and Ignite. All right, now let's get into the guide. Alright, and let's jump right into Janna's kit. First up, her passive Tailwind. Janna passively gains 8% move speed, and nearby allied champions gain this bonus move speed when they are moving towards her. Additionally, Janna's basic attacks cause additional magic damage based on her bonus movement speed. Alright, a couple things I wanted to go over with this passive that can be pretty prevalent. First up, it is always important when you guys are laning with your ADC in the bot lane to make sure you're having similar back times and you are leading your ADC so he's getting this passive movement speed to get back to lane quicker and get more CS. I know it seems like a small thing, but every little bit counts, especially when you're in long drawn out games. And next up, with that movement speed as well, when your ADC is inevitably trying to kite out either divers or tanks that are trying to get on him, try and position in a way where you can effectively use this Tailwind just to give him a little bit more mobility, getting away from the people trying to chase after him. And next up with this passive, Janna's basic attacks cause the additional magic damage based on the movement speed is a pretty good way to trade early in those early skirmishes in lane when you're just maybe auto trading with the opponent support or the opponent ADC. Just make sure that you're using this, and then also the extra attack damage from your E, and then making sure that you have the movement speed from the Zephyr can really just add that little bit more damage to your auto attacks, and sometimes even tip the all-ins with the 2v2s. Alright, next up, Howling Gale. By creating a localized charge in pressure and temperature, Janna is able to create a small storm that grows in size with time. She can activate the spell again to release the storm. On release, the storm will fly towards the direction it was cast in, dealing damage and knocking away any enemies in its path. I would say there's two main ways to use this. First is the quick snap cast, where maybe you're just flashing in just to get a knock up and securing a kill or securing some CC on a good amount of enemies. This is pretty self-explanatory. This is just a good way of Janna to chase people down and provide a good amount of CC. The other way of using it is to kind of do it from fog of war, either from a long distance behind a wall, in the bot lane, or maybe just in the bush and hoping they're not seeing the animation that way. Always keep in mind when they see the tornado coming at them, they're never going to be walking just in the same way they have been. So try and aim it in an unexpected direction, not just dead at where they are at the moment. You got to think where they're going to be as opposed to where they are. Similar to if you've ever played any type of shooting games where you kind of lead your target when you're trying to shoot at them. Alright, and next up is Zephyr. Janna summons an air elemental that passively increases her movement speed and enables her to pass through units. She may also activate this ability to deal damage and slow an enemy's movement speed. The passive is lost while the ability is on cooldown. So this is just a good way to the best way to abuse this is her passive. You don't... how should I put this? You should be using this to chase people down and to run away. So it's a distance, it's a gap creator. So use it in that way. And also it's a very good way to just maximize your trades in lane. Also, always get a couple autos in and then use your Zephyr at the end of it, just so you're getting that extra movement speed that synergizes with your passive, that gives you more AD and also lets you run away through minions with that passive. Alright, and next up is her, probably her most iconic ability, Eye of the Storm. Is just a large shield. Janna conjures a defensive gale that shields an ally champion or turret from incoming damage, increases their attack damage. This is a pretty important part of Janna's kit. I would say the ability use and what the timing you have on that can really separate the good and bad Janna players. Just try and learn opposing laners and their damage ability and output and use your shield accordingly. Kind of see when they're looking to burst out people, for example, a Lucian throwing out his W to get movement speed towards the enemy and he's starting to auto attack. That's definitely a good time to put up your shield because there is definitely incoming damage to your champion. Alright, and last up, Janna's ult. Janna surrounds herself in a magical storm, throwing enemies back after the storm is settled. Soothing winds heal nearby allies while the ability is active. Two main uses. First, this is the best way to stop an assassin that is jumping on your ADC. So if they have a lot of divers and you have a good ADC, make sure to stand near him and kind of just use this for peel. The other way is to use it is is really good during Baron. When after his buff he does a lot of AoE damage. Make sure you're keeping everyone topped off, and also applying that Ardent Sensor passive to everyone can be very big and be the difference of being able to burn down a Baron or having a contested 50-50 Smite Fest. Alright, and that will wrap up Janna's kit. Alright, and next up, Janna's runes. I'm of a pretty singular mindset when it comes to these runes in your primary tree. I really think that Aerie should always be your keystone of choice, just because it adds a bit more to your shield and it adds a bit more to your auto trades and your W, and it's just a really good all-around keystone that fits very nicely into Janna's kit. There has been like some previous people doing W Max Comet, but that's more of a kind of a trolly, like full AP type of Janna build. So I definitely recommend you just stick with Summoner Aerie, and it just really synergizes really well with her kit. It applies on your allies when you press E and when you press R, and also does damage when you press Q, W, and auto. So it's just a perfect rune for her. Just makes just emphasizes her strengths. Next up in that row, you can go Ultimate Hat, but I do recommend the Mana Flow Band just because you're not really getting too many mana items. You're getting a little bit of regen, but that max mana that you get from Mana Flow Band and the bit of regen is really important to just be able to spam out those shields and spam out that harass in the laning phase. And next up, I really think Celerity is the kind of the go-to choice here. Just again, increasing her strengths and making her a lot stronger where she is good. So it's just kind of amplifying what she's doing, where she's trying to run away or she's trying to run at a person to get a slow or to get a Q flash or to position correctly in a team fight. It's an all-around. It's a great ability just because it gives you a bit of movement speed, and then also since you already have so many passive places where you are getting movement speed, it also will increase your ability power. And in that last row, it's pretty much up to you and what elo you're in. Scorch gives you a good amount of early game harass, and then the Gathering Storm is just good for people that are in elos maybe that have very long game lengths. Alright, and next up, in the secondary tree, there's definitely 2 different ways you can go. If you're in a really rough lane that you struggle against, and that has a decent amount of kill pressure on you, say if you're maybe not too good against hooks, or if you're really struggling against good threshes at your elo, Resolve can be a very good pickup. You can go that bone plating to kind of dull a bit of that first burst that you're going to take when you are CC'd. And then also Chrysalis can give you a bit of early game health. You can also go Revitalize to increase your shields and healing, but I do find it's a little bit lackluster compared to the alternatives, but these 2 are definitely getting nerfed because they are so common that Revitalize might come back into the picture. Alright, and next up is the other tree you can look into. Maybe an uneasy lane is the best time to take inspiration with it's probably good against lanes like Karma or Sona or Soraka, where it's just, you're not under too much kill pressure and you really are just kind of having a farm lane. So the good runes, in my opinion, there is definitely Cosmic Insight. CDR is amazing on Janna, and you should always be doing that cap CDR just so you can get as many shields out on your allies as possible, and as much CC and slows as well. And next up, the other couple runes that are kind of a mention to note that are pretty good on her is Magical Footwear to get the free 300 gold, and then also Magical Biscuits can be very good against lanes that are just trying to poke you out, like Karma or Brand or something like that. And then also it's pretty cool in this, you can go Time Warp Tonic. It does synergize with all of her movement speed, but it's in no way meta, but I recommend you give it a try, as it can give you a pretty crazy amount of move speed when you put everything together. Alright, and that will wrap up the runes. If I missed anything that you guys are having great success on with the runes, please mention down below. This is just my personal preference, and yeah, I'll wrap it up. Alright, and next up, let's go over some of Janna's items that I found are very effective on her. First up, you definitely should be going the Spell Thief's line, just due to your AP scalings in pretty much every single one of the your abilities, and there is no more movement speed active on the coin line. Next up, a couple items that are very good at increasing your team fighting potential. Mikhail's is very good against pick heavy teams, such as teams with like Thresh and an Elise and maybe a Cinder stun, and just a bunch of stuns that are really going to nullify your ADC's ability to carry. And next up in that row is the Redemption. He's very good just for an AoE heal. It's good against team comps that are running a lot of AoE damage. Things like, I don't know, maybe a Ziggs out of the mid lane, and then maybe a Jarvan, and then just you get the point, just a bunch of AoE damage. It's a great way to kind of compensate for her only her single target shield. And next up is the Aegis, where it's going to provide a shield to everyone. It's not as good as it once was, but it still is decent for helping out your team in a AoE fashion. So this should be used against comps that are again very strong team fighting comps that are going to throw out a lot of damage to several different targets. All right, in the next row, I think that I called it Catch Potential. First up is Shirelia. It is very good with Janna's Kit. It also is in a great point right now on any AP-esque support, just to give that movement speed to everyone around you. It can be just the difference in a team fighting, allowing kiting, and increasing your team's ability to do catches. Now, also kind of an off-meta item, but I do think can work pretty well. is the Twin Shadows item on Janna. It has a bunch of different items or stats that Janna likes, with ability power and cooldown reduction, and even a bit of movement speed to synergize with her movement speed kit. This is a good item, I think, against enemy teams that are going to be looking to split push, and it can really allow you to either catch out the people maybe farming in mid lane, or maybe the singular person in the top lane that's trying to split push, because it can just give you a lot of catch from very far out. All right, in this next row, I call it the augment carry row. A couple really distinct items that can help you if you have a very talented ADC or singular carry that benefits off of attack speed. So I always do recommend to get the Ardent, just because it is just an all-around good item that synergizes well with Janna's kit. But I found that also Zeke's is in a really good spot right now. I know it's kind of odd to not be taking this on a tank, but it gives so much damage to the ADC that I just recommend you take it into one of your games. Maybe rush it second after your Ardent, and then just hover over it and see how much damage it has added over the team fights. And it can really be the difference between getting a kill and not getting a kill. And that last item in the augment carry row is what is that called? The Athenes again. It's very good against people that are doing a lot of single target bursts, like assassins that just have one rotation that's going to do a lot of damage and not consistent damage to your carry. This can be a great pick, especially if they're very AP heavy, as it provides magic resistance, and it is a decent item. It's not the most meta of items, but I do recommend you give it a try against very heavy AP damage that is single target burst. That's kind of where it's going to thrive. And then also you have the two boot choices of either the Lucidity to get the max CDR quicker, or the what do you call it, the mobilities mobility boots to just kind of move around the map quicker. If you guys know of any kind of items that you're having great success with that I did not mention, please mention them down below. I'd love to hear what you got to say and how they are helping you out. All right, and that will wrap up Janna's items. Alright, and next up, I just wanted to go over a few key matchups for Janna in my eyes. First up, her lowest win rate champion with the opposing support is that Fiddlestick support that does very well into Janna, just because he has a high amount of damage and he has a good amount of AoE damage, so he's able to first up silence Janna and stop her from just kind of saving the carry, and also even with her ult up, he is out damaging that ult, and he's in just a really good spot right now. So I wouldn't really recommend running Janna into Fiddlesticks. He'd probably want some sort of tanky CC bot that can lock him down and kind of burst him out. Alright, and next up, these two are kind of very they aren't really hard counters. They're just kind of the closest in win rate to Janna. They're both in the 49% win rate against. First up, Zyra has a lot of AoE damage. Again, kind of a common theme where she's able to burst out the Janna before she's able to do a lot of her abilities, unless she's preemptively shielding and healing. And next up, it's a pretty Sona matchup is just kind of a snore fest. I mean, that's pretty negligible, less than a 1% win rate. I think they both kind of serve similar roles, and it just comes down to the player matchup. So it's going to be a boring lane for you if you pick Janna into Sona, as you might have a little bit of a kill pressure if you go like Ignite and you're just doing like constant W harass on the Sona and trying to flash into the queue, but outside of that kind of play style, you aren't really going to have too much fun in the laning phase. Alright, and some great matchups for Janna is first up, the highest win rate percentage against is that Tahm Kench, where Janna has a 56% win rate, pretty much due to her ability to just bully the crap out of Tahm Kench in lane, just spamming auto attacks on him, CCing him and knocking him back so he can't devour his teammate, and it's just a really good counter to what Tahm Kench is trying to do in team fights. Also, right now, Janna has a 53% win rate against Karma. In my opinion, that is due to her just being better in that role in almost every single aspect outside of poke damage. That is a pretty small, minuscule thing when you're running Karma support. So Janna overall is just a better pick than Karma right now in the support role, in my opinion. All right, and last up, again, another tank support that Janna runs really well into is Shen. You're able to CC him off the target that he is trying to go and taunt, and you're able to harass him very hard in lane. You just have to be careful and know his E-taunt range, and you're pretty much golden, because you can, if he tries to engage and misses, you can just harass him down with W and a bunch of auto attacks and go in on him, and then you can just tornado him off your carry if he tries to taunt your carry. Yeah, and those are kind of the 6 matchups that I really think you should look out for with Janna. If you know any really good counters or something you really like taking Janna into, let me know in the comments down below, as I usually just go off of like just kind of gross stats of just like as many games as possible. I have personal experiences where I usually like running things like Brand into Janna just because she's very squishy, and I find it very easy to kill her in lane, and at least my elo. So there's an example of something that probably the win rate doesn't really reflect that, as I think it's around 50% or 51% Janna favored. I really find Brand can be very effective into Janna if you're good with the champion. All right, and that will wrap up the matchups for Janna. All right, and that will wrap up my video. Please feel free to leave any criticism or feedback on my video. I'm really receptive to that kind of stuff and enjoy talking to you guys. If you have any tips or tricks for Janna and things that you've really enjoyed on her that I didn't really cover, I love talking about her, so please comment down below. And yeah, if you enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe. I do mostly educational content and kind of long format and short format guides, and also going to bring in a couple new types of formatted videos that are kind of just looking deeper into some of the champions and their weaknesses and strengths and stuff like that. And as always, guys, take it easy.